Sorry,
Min-
Chair Palashi.
sorry.
7.3 has delegations.
My apologies. I missed that. 7.3 has delegations. 8.1 Heritage Board Minutes. Consent. And we'll deal with the correspondence as they come up. Now we'll return to, that's consent. You need a motion on consent? Moved by Councillor Tour. All in favor? That carries. Statutory public meetings. First item is a staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw MHBC Planning Limited on behalf of Glen Shore Investments Inc. at 5203 Old Castlemore Road, Ward 10. There is item 6.4, delegation from Catherine, but I assume that that is a placeholder. Would anybody like to hear a presentation on that item? It's a 5203 Castlemore Road, Ward 10. The rezoning to allow for a continuous zone across the subject land of 0.91 hectare stormwater management pond on private facility. Would anybody like to hear a staff presentation? Seeing none, that item is adjourned. I will skip over some of the items now just to see if we can get item 5.4. 5.4 was the added delegation, right? From Andrew, yes. Staff presentation, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Gagnon Walker Domes on behalf of Manga Queen Street, Queen Inc., 249 Queen Street East, Ward 3, a mixed-use development consisting of one 38-story tower at 249 Queen Street East. Does anybody here like to hear a staff presentation on that item? I will read the item out again. It's a staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw Gagnon Walker Domes on behalf of Manga Queen Inc. at 249 Queen Street East, Ward 3. Is anybody in attendance that would like to hear a staff presentation? That item is adjourned. I will now go back to one of the bigger ticket items that has some delegations. It's the staff presentation application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw Weston Consulting Group Inc. in care of Edward Fiera Germano, 10362 McLaughlin Road, Ward 6. Just to let everybody know that these are statutory public meetings. So everybody has a right to put forward an application to make a zoning change in the city of Brampton. Everybody has that God-given right. They're here today staff will present on each of those applications. As those applications are presented, it is your time. These meetings are here for you to hear the application and comment on the application. Staff will take all of your comments, and when writing the report, they will include them into that report. When that report comes back to council and council for ratification. So as of right now, these statutory public meetings are not here for us. The presentations are here for you. So I'd like to bring forward Ramsin Youssef, Planner Development Services on item 5.2. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and city colleagues. My name is Ramsin Youssef, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the development application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw. The purpose of this meeting is to provide information to the public and seek formal feedback on the application filed by Weston Consulting Group on behalf of Edward Fiera Germano. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 6, municipally known as 10362 McLaughlin Road. The property is situated on the west side of McLaughlin Road between Sandalwood Parkway West and Bouvard. Next slide, please. This slide provides an overview of the area context and land uses surrounding the subject property. The neighboring land uses can be categorized as the following. To the north is open space, a stormwater management pond, and existing low-rise residential. Existing low-rise residential areas also extend to the south. To the east are existing commercial and industrial uses, as well as a place of worship. To the west is open space and existing low-rise residential. The area subject to development is currently occupied by single residential dwellings. Next slide, please. This slide presents a detailed aerial overview of the subject property and the surrounding area. Next slide, please. Planning staff conducted a site visit of the subject property and surrounding area on December 13 of 2023. On the screen are selected site visit photos showing the existing use and conditions of the subject property. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment is intended to facilitate the development of 2 4-story stacked townhouse blocks, consisting of a total of 49 residential units and 59 underground parking spaces. A private pumping station is proposed at grade. Access to the development is planned via McLaughlin Road. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations and advancing reports to council, this application will be further evaluated for compliance with the following land use policies: the Ontario Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Regional Appeal Official Plan, and the City of Brampton Official Plan, and the Fletcher's Meadow Secondary Plan. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated as industrial and open space in the existing Brampton Official Plan. The industrial designation permits the development of a wide range of light to heavy industrial uses. This includes corporate head offices as well as high-performance industrial uses such as manufacturing and processing, repair and service, and warehouse and distribution. The open space designation generally restricts development within the exception of recreational and cultural facilities, conservation initiatives, cemeteries, transit projects, as well as essential public works and utilities. As such, an amendment to the official plan is required to permit the proposed development. Next slide, please. For additional context, Council adopted the new Brampton official plan last November of 2023. Although the plan is not yet implemented, it designates the subject property as residential and open space. The residential designation is intended for the establishment of primary residential land uses, including a range of housing types from single detached to high-rise apartments. The open space designation generally restricts development with the exception of recreational and cultural facilities, conservation initiatives, cemeteries, transit projects, as well as essential public works and utilities. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated as open space primary valley land in the Fletcher's Meadow Secondary Plan area. The open space primary valley land designation typically limits development, allowing only minimal modifications, complementary uses, and alterations. Therefore, an amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the proposed development. Next slide, please. The subject property is zoned as agricultural in the City of Brampton zoning bylaw. The agricultural designation permits agricultural and non-agricultural uses, such as a single detached dwelling, supportive housing, a cemetery, an animal hospital, a kennel, and a home occupation. A zoning bylaw amendment will be required to permit the proposed development with a site-specific zone. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes to bend the zoning bylaw from the current agricultural use to residential -R3A with site-specific provisions. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will permit the following: a maximum building height of 13.5 meters, a maximum lot coverage of 50%, a minimum landscape open space of 36%, a minimum front yard depth of 4.5 meters, and a minimum rear yard width setback of 0 meters. The draft zoning bylaw amendment will be included as part of the final recommendation report to council. Next slide, please. At this time, the key issues and considerations related to the development proposal are as follows: appropriate build form and building patterns such as height, massing, density, and setbacks, ensuring adequate buffers from the natural heritage system, addressing concerns regarding the construction of stormwater management infrastructure in proximity to a natural heritage system, and integration of suitable measures to manage noise impacts from nearby road traffic and industrial land uses. These issues and others raised will be addressed in the future recommendation report to Council. Next slide, please. Staff is hosting this statutory public meeting to share information about the proposed development and provide a formal opportunity for members of the public to express comments. This application was deemed complete on November 14 of 2023, followed by circulation to various departments and agencies for their review and feedback. Staff will continue to review this application, including evaluating comments from the public and other stakeholders. Once satisfied, staff will advance a final recommendation report to Council for a decision. Issues raised by members of the public will be addressed in the recommendation report. City staff will also contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. Additional details about the proposed amendment, such as supporting studies and drawings, can be accessed by the public via Brand Plan online. The instructions for accessing the development application files are currently displayed on the screen. Next slide, please. This public presentation will be available online shortly as part of the Plan and Development Committee meeting minutes for this evening. For any questions or comments about this official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application, please contact either myself, my manager, or the applicant, Jenna Thibault from Weston Group, who is representing the landowner, Edward Fiera Germano. The corresponding contact information are shown on the screen. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Robinson. Now I'd like to go to delegations. Our first delegation on this item is Wasim Ahmed, Brampton resident. Is Wasim in attendance or online?
Through the chair, Wasim
Yes,
is
I am.
online.
Perfect. Wasim, you have 5
Yes,
minutes.
I'm here. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation, for the detailed. Really appreciate it. My concerns are about the ravine in the back because we've been living here. There's a whole cycle of animals living that we've seen in the back, and that would get disturbed. And then there's a water ravine running that the level goes up and down, and it has enough buffer that it does not reach our houses. We don't know how it will affect the construction and the houses that's built over there. The other concern we have is how it will affect the value of the houses that are currently here, because it's very rare to find houses in Brampton where you don't have a house in front of you and you don't have a house behind you. So it's going to devalue all the houses that are behind, that are facing this construction from the backside. So my concern is environmental and obviously the property value. So I personally would be opposing this. I am not in favor of this construction, and I have seen it. I haven't seen the detailed plan for how each apartment would be, but looking at the size of the lot, 50 apartments would be very small apartments or condominiums, whatever you want to call it. And being on their distance from their entrance to the main street is what, 4 meters? Is that enough buffer for the traffic?
Okay, is that all, Wasim?
Yes, that's all. That's
Okay.
my concern, so I brought it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your delegation. Our next delegation is Supreet Singh. Supreet here online.
Through the chair, Supreet is online. He actually has a video delegation that he would like played. So if we
Excellent.
can get that,
Love
Right.
videos.
thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Supreet Singh. I am a resident of the same neighborhood as this proposed stacked townhouse development at 10362 McLaughlin Road, Brampton. I'm talking to you as I want to express my strong opposition to the proposed housing development in our neighborhood at 10362 McLaughlin Road. While I totally understand the need for affordable housing in the city, I believe that this project would have a detrimental impact on our community. The first point I want to highlight is there is a very busy Sikh temple right opposite to the McLaughlin road where this development is proposed, and a mosque within a few hundred meters. And due to these existing religious worship places, this area already sees a lot of pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Hundreds visit every day, or sometimes thousands, depending on the religious occasion. This proposed development would further worsen road safety, traffic issues in the area. Secondly, this proposed development is simply too large and dense for our area. The increase in population density will put a strain on already overburdened infrastructure, leading to increased traffic, noise pollution, and strain on public services, especially schools. Furthermore, the type of housing being proposed is simply not in keeping with the character of this neighborhood. I think it will also drastically alter the aesthetic of our area, replacing the existing greenery we see in that space and the open spaces with the monolithic high-density housing complex. I'm deeply concerned about the impact this development would have on the property values in the surrounding area. The influx of low-cost housing options will potentially result in declining the prices of the property values in this neighborhood, making it difficult for current residents like me to sell their homes and move elsewhere. And I think this will lead to monetary losses as well. In conclusion, I strongly urge you to reconsider this proposed development. While I recognize the need for affordable housing, I believe that this project is simply not the right fit for our neighborhood. And I thank everyone for their attention to this matter. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Our next delegation is Jenna Thibault, the Weston Consulting, Ian Lindley from Crozier Consulting. Welcome. Nope, front. Do you have some slides?
I do.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll just say next slide when to switch. Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Welcome.
well, yeah, thank you. So good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and members of the public. My name is Jenna Thibault. I'm a planner with Weston Consulting. I'm here this evening representing the landowner. And I'd also like to note that we have with us virtually the traffic engineer and the ecologist as well, who will be available to answer any questions that the committee may have. Next slide, please. So Ramzan already did a great job of going over the site context, so we can skip over to the next slide. So in addition to the subject property being directly adjacent to Fletcher's Creek, there are several natural heritage and hazard features on the property. Prior to beginning the development concept drafting, one of the first things we did was undertake an analysis of the key constraints on the site in order to help us determine what the net developable area of the property would be. This mapping exercise mapped the floodline, the meander belt associated with the watercourse, the drip line, and all associated buffers. The bold yellow line you can see on this figure represents the development limit, and the development limit is located completely outside of all the natural heritage and hazard constraints on the site, and largely outside of all the associated buffers, aside from 2 minor encroachments into the drip line buffer and into the floodline buffer. The area that is below the development limit is considered the constrained area on the site, and it will remain untouched and undeveloped. Next slide. So through this analysis, a net site area of 2,474 square meters was established, and a constrained area, which is intended to be undeveloped, of 2,328 square meters was established. The net density for this proposal is 198.4 units per hectare. Next slide, please. So this slide presents the proposed site plan, which Ramzan also went over in his presentation, but 2 things I'd like to highlight about the site plan is that, as you can see from this plan, there is a large area on the site which will remain undeveloped, which is that constrained area I spoke about a little earlier, and that area does provide separation between the proposed development and Fletcher's Creek. The second thing I'd like to highlight is that a pumping station is proposed on the site because the site is not in close proximity to any sanitary sewers. There was extensive consultation with the region, and the region is in support of the pumping station. The pumping station has also been sized in order to accommodate future development of the 2 adjacent lots to the south, should they redevelop in the future. Next slide. Underground parking is proposed and will provide for 59 parking spaces. Next slide. So this slide presents the landscape plan, and one of the things I just want to highlight about the landscape design is that within the constrained area, there is an enhancement buffer proposed, and the intent of this buffer is to help with further protection and naturalization of this environmental area on the site. Next slide. So Ramsden already went over the planning policy context, so I don't want to repeat anything that was already said. I just want to highlight that under the in effect official plan, the industrial land use designation is actually a mapping error. This has been identified by city policy staff and has been corrected in the new adopted brand plan. Next slide. As it relates to the secondary plan context, there's one key point I want to bring up, and that is that there is a foundational policy within the secondary plan, policy 3.3.4, which supports the redevelopment of this site for residential uses. Essentially, this policy indicates that within the Valleyland designation, if there are areas that are determined to be unrelated or not required for Valley Corridor function, they will revert to the adjacent land use designation without the need for an official plan amendment. It is our opinion that we conform with this policy, and this is supported by the environmental impact statement submitted with this application. In this case, an official plan amendment is still required in order to permit the proposed density and the built form. Next slide. And as mentioned by Ramsden, a zoning bylaw amendment application is also required. Next slide. And this slide indicates all the reports and studies that were submitted by the submitted with the applications and have helped inform the development concept. Next slide. I'd just like to conclude this presentation by indicating to the committee that it's our intention to work through the comments that were received by staff and also consider the comments received this evening so that we can move forward with the resubmission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenna. Thank you so much. Our next delegation is a former councillor from the city of Brampton from 2014 to 2022. Former councillor Doug Willens. Councillor Willens, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, Chair Pelleshi and members of council. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you just good. Yeah, fine, yeah.
And good evening, members of council and city staff and the applicant for the proposed development at 10362 McLaughlin Road. Councillor Pelleshi gave me a formal introduction, so put it into context. I am a lifelong resident of Brampton and a former city councillor of Wards 2 and 6, where this application is proposed. Our family also has been a resident of Brampton since 1958, and we've resided in this address on McLaughlin Road since the late 80s, and have likely seen more changes in this area than anybody in the chambers this evening or online today. Although we don't have any strong objections to the proposed development at 10362, there is some few issues I'd like to speak to. The sidewalk and road relocation, with the restraints currently in place, entering and exiting from our driveways, would be opposed to any relocation. We would be opposed to any location on the current sidewalk or road alignment with respects to the properties of 10346 and 10334. I am speaking on behalf of my neighbors at 10346, which abut onto this proposed development. We've taken under adoption our family since the early 2000s as well, and cared for the green space along Holmes Channel, which goes parallel along with McLaughlin Road to the south. And we've just asked that the natural habitat along the Fletcher's Creek be protected and perhaps enhanced. With respect to the stormwater, I have been in touch with the planning consultants, and I think they've addressed the needs. Our biggest concern was that the stormwater wouldn't affect our properties, because it is we do have some portions of our property that are in the valley land, but it looks like they've addressed that issue with the containment on the property at the proposed development. There was mention of the wastewater sewage pumping station on the proposed site with a forced main line to be connected to the region of Peel Sanitary at Lowry Drive. The pumping station is proposed in sized in accordance for future developments that may occur at our properties. But since the proposed development does have a potential to have adverse effects on the current septic systems on our properties, we'd like to set up a meeting in the near future if this property was to be application was to be approved, to see if we can get a connection to that sooner than later, because I believe that the proposed development will affect our septic systems. The proposal of the applicant is seeking full move access in the plan. We're not really opposed to full move access. However, it may be difficult to achieve. So staff may consider looking at the possibility of relocating the current pedestrian crossing to align it with a full move access point for the development. It's also understanding that proposed zoning changes include both an official plan amendment, a secondary plan amendment, as well as zoning bylaw amendments. We have no issues with the OPA. A portion of the property was mapped in error as industrial and open space and should have been zoned agricultural, as the rest of the property currently is. The zoning bylaw amendment to change from agricultural to residential, we have no issues with. However, in the secondary plan amendments, they're asking for site-specific exemptions that aligns with stacked townhouses with a density of 200 units per acre. The Fletcher's Meadow plan is based on an official amendment 93-78, which came into effect, I believe, in the fall of 1988. It speaks to allowing 34.6 units per hectare based on the fact that the proposed property falls under the low medium density category. The same secondary plan also addresses areas designated as medium cluster and high density residential uses within the high density residential category of the official plan as permitted. The net density for medium cluster high density residential designations is 124 units per hectare, but it does not address the stacked townhomes. If the applicant were to align his proposal with more in line with what's already allowed in the Fletcher's Meadow secondary plan, and the city were to change the designation to medium cluster high density designation, then I think all parties may be able to reach a proposal and we could all agree with. I understand this is the initial stage of the development process, and I am asking that the applicant and or their consultants and city staff just keep an open dialogue with us as the proposal progresses. As well, if and when the development reaches the design stage, it is imperative that the applicant and their planning consultants, in conjunction with city staff and outside organizations like CSET, the Center for Community Energy Transformation, work together to ensure the development meets better than OBC standards while protecting and enhancing the natural environment. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whillans. Is there anybody else in the audience today that would like to come down and do a delegation, ask any questions of staff, provide any comments on this application? I will ask one more time if anybody else would like to come down and if they have any questions on the application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Weston Consulting Group, Edward Fieria, Germano 10362 McLaughlin Road, Ward 6. Seeing none, I'm happy to move receipt of the staff presentation. Item 6.1, public delegations.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's Tammy. Councillor Singh would like to speak. He has his hand up, sorry.
Councillor Singh would like to speak on this?
I believe.
I don't think so.
Sorry, 1 second. Supreet Singh would like to speak.
Supreet Singh.
Yeah.
Okay. Supreet Singh was a delegation already, so I can't allow that, but I can allow anybody else that would like to
But they didn't speak.
speak on this item.
The video, okay.
And everybody's allowed 5 minutes, and that's it. But Supreet, if you can hear me, you can reach out to staff, you can call them, provide any correspondence, comments to staff, and they will definitely get back in touch with you and have that a part of the staff report. So it's been moved by myself, receipt of the staff presentation, the public delegations, item 6.1, the correspondence that are affiliated with this. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is a staff presentation, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, draft plan of subdivision, Stanford Homes, WND Associates, 200 County Court Boulevard, Ward 3. We have Nicole Hansen, welcome, to give the staff presentation. Take it away, Nicole.
Perfect. Good evening. Hello, my name is Nicole Hansen, and I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of the public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by WND Associates Limited on behalf of Stanford Home. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 3, municipally known as 200 County Court Boulevard. The site is located on the southeast side of Hurontario Street and County Court Boulevard. Next slide, please. The slide shows an overview of the site. The surrounding land uses are described as the following. To the north, commercial and institutional. To the south, residential. To the east, residential and open space. To the west, commercial and residential. Next slide, please. The site is currently occupied by 5 standalone one-story buildings and a variety of retail and commercial tenants. The property fronts onto Hurontario Street, County Court Boulevard, and Havelock Drive. Hurontario Street is envisioned to be a sustainable, transit-oriented, mixed-use corridor supported by the Hurontario LRT. Next slide, please. These are photos taken from the site looking southeast from County Court Boulevard, northwest from County Court Boulevard, and south from Hurontario Street. Next slide, please. The proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision is to facilitate the development of 5 residential towers ranging in heights from 22 to 44 stories. 2 privately owned public accessible spaces are also proposed with on-site parkland dedication. The total GFA proposed is 135,260 square meters, where 133,000 square meters would be residential and 2,500 square meters would be commercial. Next slide, please. The development is set to occur in 3 phases and will incrementally introduce new commercial and residential uses. The following is a summary of the development proposal. Lot area, 2.15 hectares. Residential units, 1,946. Floor space index, 6.31. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan. Next slide, please. The lands are designated office in the City of Brampton official plan and permits a variety of employment, commercial, and limited residential uses. The lands are located within the boundaries of the Ray Lawson MTSA. An amendment is required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The lands are within the Hurontario Main Corridor Secondary Plan and designated as Mixed Use 2. Therefore, an amendment to the secondary plan is not required. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The property is zoned service commercial, special section 2651, where an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes an amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit a site-specific mixed-use zone which reflects the development. Next slide, please. As it pertains to key issues and considerations for the proposal, the issues are as follows. Secondary plan policies prescribe predominantly employment uses for the lands. The development proposal does not contribute to any required office being located in a major office employment area and major transit station area. The proposed privately owned public space limits the potential of a connected public realm with the existing neighborhood. The development is adjacent to existing low-rise residential uses where there would be immediate impacts to residents. The development is adjacent to the Cheyenne Cemetery, which is a culturally sensitive land use with historical significance. The considerations are as follows. The property is located in an area intended for intensification. The property is located within the boundaries of the Ray Lawson MTSA. Development will be coordinated in an orderly and phased approach as it relates to the provision of servicing and other infrastructure requirements. Next slide, please. The next steps in the application are, so the application was deemed complete on November 6, 2023. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments from staff, and advance a final recommendation report to council for a decision. Issues raised will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring the proposal. Next slide, please. The development application can be accessed by the public through Brand Plan Online. Next slide, please. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. The applicant is Eric Rez from WND Associates Limited, representing the owner, Stanford Homes. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Move over to the delegations. We have Andrew Farankik from WND Associates. Andrew, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I do have a presentation. I hope to keep it as short as possible. I know I only have 5 minutes, so I will be skipping ahead a little bit. So once again, we're the planners that are retained by the owners of the site with respect to this application. Next slide, please. We have a few context photos that are a little different than what Nicole showed, although she did a good job of providing some context here. Next slide. We took the liberty of actually taking some aerial photos ourselves from our drone, which I think provides a really good perspective of what the site looks like. A lot of paving, a lot of autofocus right now, 5 commercial buildings. And we think that there's an incredible opportunity here to provide for intensification and provide a mix of uses here. Next slide. This is an area, of course, along the Huron-Ontario corridor that's seeing an incredible amount of development interest. That's directly related to the new LRT. And you can see the LRT stop, the Ray Lawson stop, will be right across the street from the subject site in the middle of the street. So excellent location for intensification for this sort of form of development. Next slide. We looked at some of the applications that have been submitted and also existing context. A lot of dots and colors here, but the red essentially shows the applications under review. The applications to the north are for 25 and 34 stories, similar in scale. And up the street, closer to Steele's, even a far greater scale of up to 50 and even 60 stories now. So again, significant amount of interest in this area directly related to transit, which is directly in line with provincial policy. And this will actually add to that story of renaissance along this corridor. Next. And Nicole covered the policies, so I'll skip ahead here. I'll just say that to reiterate, residential is permitted here. There's some discussion with city staff about the level of residential relative to the amount of commercial uses. This was a secondary plan that was done pre-COVID. We know that the amount of office space that is of interest to the market is different now than it used to be, so that's an evolving discussion. Next, please. Next again. Just a couple more slides over. Next. And Nicole went through some of the boring stuff, but I'll just talk about hopefully some of the highlights of what we think this can accomplish. It's a transit-oriented form of development. That's a buzzword that's used across the province now. It actually means something. It means that that's where the growth is intended to occur, next to transit. And this is exactly that. There's the enhancement potential for the Heritage Cemetery, the Shane Cemetery, with a linear park, public realm enhancements, design, which can be iconic and provide a gateway at the south end of Brampton, enhanced walkability, permeability through the site, and also sustainability. It's all paved now, it's auto-oriented, it really doesn't do much for the environment, and 73 trees will be added to the site than what exists today. Next. This diagram shows County Court on the top, here Ontario on the left-hand side, and in the orange, I'm not sure why we showed it in orange, but it's intended to show the linear park that is being proposed. That would actually enhance the size of, visually, the Shane Cemetery and provide a direct connection through to Havelock Drive. And there's also a park, as you know, on the east side of Havelock Drive, so it'll provide a nice linear link park system. Linear parks are not strange to Brampton. They're all over the place, and we think that this can be a great feature. There's also other open space located within the site that would be publicly accessible, private amenities, and also private driveway system through the site. Next. So this shows in the sort of, I guess, salmon-y colored pink that the site is actually skinned in retail along here Ontario, along County Court, and there's also a linear pops between the buildings that actually provides for, we think, a really interesting retail location here. The yellow indicates ground floor residential sort of townhouses, and then the pink is indoor amenity. Next. The buildings range in height from as high as 44 down to the sort of low 20s. And we think that's an appropriate scale in the context of this evolving corridor, with the greatest height being, of course, at the corner where it should be along here Ontario Street, and then scaling down to heights that are more similar, already existing in the neighborhood to the east. Next. Just a few renderings here, as I have only 44 seconds left. This is a view looking east at the corner of what this site could look like in the fullness of time, with the LRT running along here Ontario, providing for pedestrian scale, higher level of urbanism than exists now, very walkable context, we think attractive as well. Next. This is a closer, or sort of backup view, I should say, of the entire development from the same perspective. Next. This is looking through one of the linear pop spaces, which provides open space that can have patios and cafes. Next. And this is part of the POPs open space, which provide a park-like setting for people. Next. One last slide left. The phasing plan. We would start from the east, next go to here Ontario, and then the last phase would be the middle where the Tim Hortons is today. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Eris Guvis, Brampton resident. Eris, online?
I'm here. You can hear me all right?
We can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for such a forward-thinking proposal. It's gorgeous. And thank you to Nicole for calling it the Here Ontario LRT, and not by what some others are calling it on our southern border. The proposal addresses our current housing crisis by increasing the housing stock. However, it does not necessarily address affordability. Let me address the housing stock first. The tallest building in the area currently is 18 stories, which is the Crown East and the Crown West adjacent to this property, which I think is an adequate setback. The current proposal of over 44, 39, and 34 stories seem imposing, with the podium being set right on the street. Further setback might be a little more streetscape friendly, so to speak. I also have a concern of throwing, 2,000 homes into that corner. Our current public school system is already taxed. We're living in portables already, both Cherry Tree and I think it's the other one down the street. The middle school is also at capacity. I'm not sure how the planners are going to address that. Hopefully they put it on their list of things to do. My next point is about affordability. I might not be the right place, but I think as planners, we should be thinking about this. My assumption here, these are all going to be condos, which will be snapped up by investors, contributing to the upward spiral and speculation of housing, and doing nothing to mitigate the housing crisis, which is a provincial, the province is talking about right now. Leaving it to market conditions of supply and demand is what they always do. I leave it to council to find creative ways to discourage investors and allow homeowners to live in their own units. Could it be, I'm not sure that the Planning Act allows us to force condo developers to make him make him a REIT, make him something other than what they're going to be, which is to be investment properties for owners that are not there, and we're going to have the same continuing spiral of unaffordability all around us. And that is about all I have to say, guys. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much for your delegation, Harris. Our next up is Joseph Oliveros. Joseph, welcome. Take your time.
Mr. Chair, councilors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Oliveira, and I'm representing the building next door to the east of it. It's a building with 21 stories. I'm also speaking for people that signed, neighbors to the south behind this project, and also in Havelock, a few names that we have. The biggest concern that we look at is you're looking at 2,000 units, 1,900 and change. Nobody seems to answer this question if it's going to be rentals or condos. We understand it's going to be residential and not condos. 5 buildings on a 5-acre parcel, 2,000 people, you got to estimate it at times 5, 10,000 people in one corner, another 5,000 cars. The only way out it is county court. And there's another proposal on the other side of county court to, I didn't want to bring that up, but I see what the gentleman brought up, Steeles Avenue. They're going to go Steeles Avenue at 60 floors. But the reason why I'm bringing to county court, which is the other corner, and they're proposing another 4 buildings there and another 2 commercials, making another 4,000 cars and 8,000 people. And the only way out is through county court. There's no other way out. There isn't a street that backs up into the golf course, 250. That's the only way by the courthouse. Going back to the neighbors behind me in our building, we are, I do have the proposal. I don't have the slides ready for you, but we're the yellow building on the east, 20 stories. We're 65 feet behind the property line. We can look at a picture today. This is what we look at when we see out through our front. And after we're finished, this is what we're going to see, because you got a building that's in front of you, right? And you've got this, you're taking out our sunlight. You're taking the quality of life. The sun starts on the east, it comes around the back of the south, it goes to the west. And when we're going to look west, we got this building that they're building right on the sidewalk, right there, and that's where we're going to be looking at it. You talk about the value of our properties, what that's going to do. That's a hard sale. And we're just asking the city, please, if these guys are saying, hey, we are putting 73s, we got 275 threes in our thing. They're putting 73, and we already have a problem because this park is directly behind us. We've seen that we have to build up security in the summertime because these kids are hopping the fence. We got 42-inch fence. Now imagine, you got 10,000 people in one corner, another 8,000, and that's the only park available. You got to count on 6,000 kids by the time this is finished. I say times 5. In our building, we're condos. We have a max of 4 people on a 1,390 square foot. We've seen people with nine people in our 2 bedrooms. We check it out, we get them out. So you got to look at 10,000 people, 5,000 cars. You're going to put a hole on the ground. I have no idea. 8, 9 stories down. Please, considering the light, our quality of life, there are people that pay crazy money for these places. We've had the houses in Peel Village. I see there's another one going up by across on Bartley Bowl. But you're only allowing 23 stories. Make sure that everybody's happy. 44 stories. That's 440 feet going across our front end. We will never see light on the front again. Our gardens, our swimming pool will be covered. You're just taking the quality of life. Please, we ask the board to consider. They already did two proposals because of COVID. ask them to do a third, but line it up with us. Do not take our son away. That's what we're asking. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your delegation, Joseph. Thank you, Joseph. Our next delegation, Sylvia Roberts. Sylvia, online.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Go ahead,
Can you hear
Sylvia.
me? Hi, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I am a resident of Ward 3. Happy New Year. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend in person today because I am sick. So if I sound a little bit difficult to hear, that's what's going on. On this site, I have been through the application and through the architectural drawings and stuff. And as to the previous speaker who's concerned about thousands and thousands of cars, there's simply just not enough parking space included in this development to do that. I think the developer has put forward a relatively reasonable number of parking spaces. I believe it works out to something like 0.3 per bedroom, which sounds really low. But when you consider it's right next to the LRT stop, I think that actually makes a lot of sense. I've been talking to economic development even before the pandemic. This site had challenges for office. This whole node has challenges for office. And as the planning department just needed to get the new official plan out of the door as soon as ASAP in order to meet provincial regulations to prevent Doug Ford from crayoning whatever he felt like for our official plan, we were not able to revisit several of the policies like our office nodes. I think overall, the scale of the development makes sense for the urban environment you are going for. I do agree with some of the previous delegates' concerns regarding park space. The city's target is 1.6 hectares of parkland per 1,000 people. And there's simply not enough parkland being included in the developer. This isn't their fault. The actual calculations for parkland would require more parkland than the entire site takes up. So the city will need to look at procuring at least an additional 4 hectares of parkland somewhere in this vicinity, which I've already touched base with the Parks Department for, because this area requires significant redevelopment and intensification, and it just can't be included on site. I have concerns with how the city does some of its parking or its transit studies. For this particular site, it's not as much of an issue, but for many of these high density applications, we are counting the number of cars and we fail to count the number of transit trips. So based on Brampton's transit data, this site will generate somewhere around 400 to 500 transit trips in the peak hour, which, if we didn't have the LRT there, would require the addition of something like 10 40-foot buses, or at least 8 60-foot buses. And we are simply not counting, we're not keeping track of how much new transit all of these developments are requiring. And I am concerned that the city, once these developments start getting shovels in the ground, we are not going to have planned adequate transit service for all of these developments. Just like we need to make sure that the cars won't overwhelm the roads, we need to make sure that we're planning for enough transit so that when people move into this place, there's enough transit. Because of how long high rises take, we should have a standardized process. So once the building permit is issued, we'll have the calculations done. The planning department will talk to the transit department and say, this is how many buses we think we're going to need and how many transit service hours we think we're going to need. And that can be included specifically in the budget. So council knows these buses and these service hours are specifically to address the increased population demand from the development we're building. And as such, it's necessary, just like providing roads and sewer and stuff, to ensure that we have our hard services for the residents, because I live somewhat near here. And if we don't plan enough transit here, it's going to affect where I live. So I'd like to make sure that council keeps in mind and makes sure to plan for enough transit as the new developments come in. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Our next delegation is Raman Grewal. Raman is online?
Yes, hi.
Hi,
Yes.
Raman, you have 5
Good.
minutes.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me the chance to express my concerns. I am more concerned about overcrowding the existing resources. I feel like we don't have good enough infrastructure to support these new building permits. Overcrowding of schools. I don't think there's any plan in place for new construction of a new school to accommodate all the high volume new students that will move into the area. As one of the speaker mentioned, schools are already running at full capacity, classes are full, packed. Another one of my concern is overcrowding of community centers, recreational services. I can speak from my experience. It is so hard to register for kids' classes these days. Swimming, skating, classes open. Registration opens up at 6 a.m. and classes gets full within minutes. And if you miss, you have to wait for the next sessions, which is months and weeks later, and same thing repeats. And not to mention the crisis with their healthcare system. We don't even have a hospital that can accommodate the current number of people living in Brampton. We are already in crisis, and we need a full-fledged hospital in Brampton. And I don't think there's any plans for healthcare or to address the other issues that I've mentioned. And traffic is also, is a huge concern, which some of the speakers mentioned. It's just only going to make it worse. And the buildings will be shadowing over our properties, and that will, decrease the value of our properties. That's a huge concern for all the neighborhood and everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your delegation. That
Thank you so much.
That concludes the list of delegations. I would like to now open it up to permit anybody here that's in attendance that would like to come down. And, yep, you can come down. We have a book for you to sign in. So you have to sign in, state your name, and then you're provided 2.5 minutes? Or is it the full 5? It's still 5. Okay. So anybody else that would like to come down, please come down and sign in on the book. You can go ahead and delegate, ma'am. You go ahead and delegate and then sign in after, okay? You can go ahead and delegate and then sign in after you're done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, good evening, everyone. And actually, I'm another owner of the PCC 276, and I'm the treasurer for that building too. And you will be hearing a lot of numbers from me, but I will try to keep it to approximations. So, the map that was attached to the notice has a drawing of the area around it. And if I look at, I just try to count the houses right just between the Ontario and the Havelock, just that corner. And there's 500 houses approximately in that area. So with the 500 houses and 5 people living in there, right now we have a 2,500 roughly, a population I'm looking at from that area. And then I included the 200 units from our building too. And now with this 1946 units coming, and even with the minimum, if I go with the 2 people living in each unit, average it out, so it's like a 4,000. So we are more than doubling the population of that area. So that's like this kind of like gives you the contrast. On top of it, the area these units are built, it's 1/10 of the area that the map that I was referring to. So this area that they're only 2 hectares. And I heard one of the another development, they were mentioning 124, I think it's for the low rise, it was like a 1 hectare and 124 units. And it's 2 hectares, and we are building 1,946 units on that. So my major concern is that on top of it, then we have an issue with the shadow. So that's there, like everybody mentioned the shadow, but I'm going to be there with a more specific too, being a electrical engineer. So that's another. So we have a 44 floor stories that are coming. So 44 roughly with a 5, it's like a 200-meter height tower that will be right next to our unit. And 200-meter, we can see a shadow close to, it can go to 1.73 times. Roughly, we can have a shadow that could be a 350-meter at a time. So this height is going to influence not just our condo, it'll go much past that. We are looking at a shadow of more than a 300-meter from that unit, from their tallest tower. So it's going to totally change the lifestyle. You know, my daughters, they live in a downtown, so I go visit them over the weekend, and I think, oh, I'm in a peace now when I come back to my home. Now I'm thinking, like, it'll be someday I'm going to, like, in a near future, I'll be facing the same scenario. I picked this place. Maybe I'll be forced to move out of this place. So these are the features that I bought the unit over here. It was not as populated, but I don't think it would be a good idea to have that tall building for that small area. 5 buildings, and one of the presenter for the development, they mentioned 73 trees. 73 trees for 400 cars that will be added. That footprint has no equivalence. And so transit is one thing. Right now, I was considering LRT as a blessing. So the way the developer is trying to promote it by highlighting the fact that LRT, the closer vicinity to the LRT, will make it an ideal project for that. So I don't know, this is how I'm feeling at this point with, I was so excited for LRTs. I would be going to the Scare One on LRT. I wouldn't be using the car. But now I think of this, there's pros and cons. And I hope this design will be reviewed by the planner, and council will make a decision and consider our concerns. And we would like just to review the height, the floors. Currently, our building is 20 floors, and 44, it'll be double the height, no privacy. And the height and the amount of the 5 buildings that they're putting, I don't know how they're gonna manage, how many parking spots, how many floors they have to go down to build the parking spots for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a-
Don't
sorry.
forget to,
Can you please state your name?
okay, thank you.
It's Harjeet Kaur and owner of the 701 PCC 276.
Perfect, thank you. Is there anybody else in attendance that would like to come down and delegate on this item? Come down, please. If there is anybody else that would like to come down and delegate, please come down and put your name in the book, and then we'll give you 5 minutes. I know that Councillor Keenan is online. Do we have Councillor Medeiros online? Councillor Medeiros and Councillor Keenan are both online, and they're listening to all of your comments. Come on forward and start delegation, and then we'll get you to.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us to talk. I'm from the same condominium. I don't know much about parking statistics or how many people are going to be there, but I'd like to give a bit of history of what's happened to me. 20 years ago, I moved into this building. And the reason I moved into the building is its location. I looked at all the condos in Bramley by the Bramley City Center. I looked at the condos on Mill Street. I looked on the condos in Havelock in Bramley. So I had a good reading of what kind of buildings were around and what kind of people were in those buildings. I ended up coming here because I noticed that this Central Park, I used to work in Central Park, sorry. The crescent that goes around County Court had no egress or entrance except the two going onto Highway 10. I looked at the building across on Ray Lawson Cherry Tree and saw that there was a lot of cars, a lot of traffic. That's why I moved in to the condo on County Court. And when I went to school some 50, 60 years ago, we talk about urban density and what it did to the people living in the area, and it wasn't good. They talked about urban sprawl. What I see in Brampton, especially in this design, is condominium apartment sprawl. Condominium apartments coming up Malta, around Cherry Tree. Now they're coming on to County Court. We already have one apartment building already in County Court. There's development going in on the other end of County Court, 4 buildings as was said. And now you got 5 buildings put in a very small area as far as I'm concerned. I'm also concerned about the traffic around the buildings. Right now during the summer, we got 2 parks near us. There's lots of kids playing baseball on those parks. And when they're not playing baseball, people are out playing cricket. So it's very busy. When you put this many more apartments, buildings in that area with that many more people, you're going to have that much more population of kids trying to find somewhere to go. That's going to cause danger, I think. We also have a Tim Hortons there that has a lineup of cars, at least 15 to 20, almost all hours of the day. More traffic. We got a courthouse just down the street, which during the week is packed. People are leaving that courthouse to park on our street to go to the courthouse. We have a provincial courthouse across the street. Again, not much parking there. Where are they parking? On our streets. The other thing that bothers me, everyone's making this, it's so great that we're having a LRT. Transit's great. Well, this council knows about transit. That's why the transit is stopping where it's stopping and not going into downtown Brampton. Council knows the problems with transit. That's why it stops where it's going to stop. With all these concerns, with all the danger of kids coming in and out of the parks, coming in and out of the stores there, I just don't think it's a good idea to have that much density in that small area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Oh, sorry, can you also state your name for the record?
Randy Benham, Unit 1807,
Thanks, Randy.
276 PCC.
Thanks, Randy. Is there anybody else in attendance that would like to come down and delegate? I don't see anybody else that is in attendance that would like to come down and delegate. Anybody online? Seeing none. No counselors asking questions or making, no, okay. So that's item 5.3. Councillor Keenan move receipt of item 5.3 and receipt of the delegations, item 6.2, and any correspondence. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is item 6, sorry. That was 5.3, 5.4 was 6.2 is done. 6.3 is done. We'll give a minute for people to exit for the ones that need to leave. Six four is done. 6.5. 7.1 is done. 7.2. 7.3 is next, right? Oh, 6.6. Our next item is item 6.3, the delegations application on the application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, Arcadius on behalf of Regional Municipality of Peel, 1358 Queen Street West, Ward 5. Our first delegation is Armandeep Soren, Brampton resident on behalf of the Credit Valley Residents Association. Amardeep, welcome.
Good evening, Council, and all the participants here, all the people from our ward and the others. Okay, so I had to cut down my 50-slide presentation to a one-pager, so I'll be reading verbatim, so please bear with me. All right, so good evening and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Amardeep Soin, and I'm representing the Credit Valley Resident Association for the residents of Ward 4, 5, and 6. We express our strong concerns over the proposed location of the Brampton Youth Shelter at 1358 Queen Street West. The area isn't zoned for institutional use for a good reason. Yeah. This incompatible zoning change would lead to issues with safety and privacy of the families in the neighborhood. And more so, this location is not suited for the purpose of the youth shelter and the cohorts it intends to support. And that is highlighted in a petition submitted to the city, which I would request if you can display. I won't be reading from it, but I was asked that it can be displayed.
Display the petition?
Yeah. If okay.
I don't know if we're
It's all right
allowed
to the
to.
base. Okay, and we do understand and we do know that this is a Peel Region's proposal and initiative. However, the city of Brampton, I think, owes to the area residents a responsible and considerate decision, as we will be the most impacted stakeholders in the whole transaction, being the immediate residents of the area. And question in our mind is, how do we justify well-being of 80 residents? When I say 80 residents, 80-bed shelter that we are proposing, while jeopardizing the well-being of hundreds of area residents. And mind you, I mean, we are all very compassionate people. It's not that we have anything against the unfortunate homeless population. It's just the location that we are here to talk about. And just the proposal of the youth center, and literally has disturbed the mental decorum of multiple residents, including me. And that too in the midst of the rental housing standards and licensing fiasco that residents of these choicest wards are dealing with. Because it's unfortunate that when you go on the City of Brampton map, the ward map, and these wards are painted red, which is very embarrassing. Even though they had been chosen as a pilot, it's not a compliment. It's a kind of a shame for us, what's going on, right? And personally, I travel to Toronto 3 times a week and track 2 kilometers from the Union Station to my work. And I see firsthand what some of these unfortunate homeless shelter residents do when they are not in the shelters, because the authorities have no control over them when they are outside the periphery of the shelter. They're not in the shelter the 24 hours, right? They have to leave the shelter and nobody's watching them what they do, right? Sleeping on the curbs, panhandling, brawls, drugs and alcohol. That's a regular sight on my trek to my work. Even though when I go through the path, still I am privy to a lot of bad stuff which is happening in Toronto, but that's Toronto. I'm not saying that will happen in Brampton, but Toronto, I think, is busting at its seams when it comes to the homeless shelters. And I'm sure all those people probably will trickle down to us. In fact, personally, I've been chased, hurled abuses by few who may be dealing with apparent health issues. Again, it's unfortunate. Or if you didn't listen to their demand for money, they ask you for money, and some of them will, when you don't look at them in their eyes, you walk away, it's okay. But some, they're aggressive. And I've seen it firsthand. I see it every other day when I go. And I've spoken to a few homeless individuals while helping them with food, because I never give them money when they ask that they're hungry. I buy them food, right? Some of them have horror stories to share. Some feel safer on the streets than the shelters, and we as society just can't deny it. And I know the Planning and Development Committee is bound by the policies and procedures, which may not have considered the full scope of the collateral impact on the neighborhood's well-being, and something that can't be ignored. Actually, that was the message from other speakers as well, the property values, right? Therefore, on behalf of the Credit Valley Residents Association and our neighborhoods, I request the city to rescind the plan to develop the proposed lands for the Brampton Youth Center and re-evaluate the other choices. There are much other better choices available, which may work for both the shelter and the residents and the neighborhood. After all, we are not asking you to cancel the gas plants. That was a joke. So
I got it.
With that, I thank you again. And we, being real concerned residents, we are willing to help the city. And again, this neighborhood, I can vouch for them. The major diaspora is South Asians. They are very compassionate people. They are participating in the charities, and they are there for the people who are in need. However, this particular decision is not working well, not working or jiving well for us. And it would not jive for the residents of the shelters.
Thank you for your delegation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Yasser Nawashari. Yasser,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you for your time. Again, I will just continue with where Amardeep left. And again, it's the same Credit Valley Resident Association. So I just wanted to pick up some points that last time the builders representative brought in, and I thought they were playing just with words to get it through. So one thing they said, there is a daycare center just quarter mile from the place. And it's a huge daycare center for those who don't know. It's a two-story daycare center. It's not just a one-room daycare center. It's a two-story huge daycare center. And they said it's a quarter of a mile. So whoever was not paying attention would think it's miles away. It's not miles away. They could have mentioned it's like 300 meters, which would be a quarter of a mile around that. So it's pretty close, and I live nearby, and I think it's even closer than 300 meters from there. Then when it came to how far are those shops, health, walk-in clinic, and this, they said it's a walking distance. Here they did not mention about miles. They just mentioned walking distance. And for some people, even 5 kilometers or 5 miles is walking distance. And from my experience, it's almost like maybe 1 to 2 kilometers from the proposed place for the the center. And walking that much amount in winter, especially days like today, is a huge amount up and down. And the third thing they mentioned about the transit, at least in this one, they agreed that the transit is horrible. I personally rely on public transport, and I'm telling you, it's not fun traveling from there, especially if you are going somewhere, Mississauga or Toronto. It's a huge nightmare. And I don't blame the Brampton Transit for that, because even when I eventually get in the bus, it's almost empty. So it's all about demand and supply. So there is no demand in there. That's why there is no supply. There's no transit in there. And so Brampton Transit is not going to be in a rush to put some additional buses in there. And so with these things in mind, we have to realize a youth shelter is for kids youth between 18 to 23. These are people who are low on luck and who are trying to get back onto their feet. And so they want to be as close to the possible to the amenities, to the services, to the jobs. And we cannot just go and put them in the most remote corner of Peel region. A more appropriate space for them would be somewhere, either in the Business Innovation Center, where we are planning a huge business innovation district here. A lot of jobs, transit, go transit straight to Toronto, transit to this, or even better near Mississauga Square One, or on the east side of Mississauga, where they are close to everything. And so they can avail those opportunities, avail those services, and get back on their feet. So that's my point. Means is we have to really, I request the council really to look closely at, is this really the place that a youth shelter would be the best suited for? In a suburb where most of the people require their own convenience to get to the services, to get to the hospitals, to get to the jobs, to get everywhere. It may be a good place for maybe an old home, or maybe there's already somewhere in this a correctional center. but not for a youth shelter. And finally, I think there were some delegations already that mentioned is, I already am a father of two, and I have been going around taking them places, and I have not seen a community center developed in the last 20 years. So we are putting up so many different things in this, so many residential areas, so many condos, so many this, but we have not developed any sort of community center for the last 20 years. So I would just suggest that maybe this site, I think some of my friends last time also mentioned, maybe this site would be a nice place to put a community center, which all the community around can avail for the better of the community and maybe for the health of all the residents around. Thank you very much. That's all I want.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Our next delegation is Karvit Cho. Karvit? Welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Council, members of the public and city staff. My name is Garvit Chugh, and I'm a resident of Brampton. I'm here as a voice for my neighbors on both sides of Queen Street who have been kind enough to lend me their support for my words today. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I am opposing the selection of this site to build the said youth center at 1358 Queen Street West. Overall, the housing situation in Canada is at its worst. We know that there is no hiding the fact that students, youths, adults alike are facing the acute shortage of affordable housing in Canada. Moreover, there have been numerous reports of students openly sharing on social media ways to get free food from food shelters, which are meant to help people of our community really struggling with providing food to their families. What is stopping such behavior to be extended to this center as well? There is a high likelihood of overcrowding at this center, given the affordable nature of the center itself. How will this concern be allayed? Secondly, there have been points made around integration of at-risk youth. Integrating youth is paramount to their success as adults. I agree that it starts with housing, but it can't stop there. There needs to be enough opportunities for jobs, extracurricular activities that can help them realize their potential and be confident and independent adults and become contributing members of society. Simply putting up a housing center in the with lack of transport and job opportunities is only going to exacerbate the problem. There are no libraries, no tech centers, no learning centers, as my neighbor just mentioned, to support continued education. Problems with transportation to and from the center have been brought up repeatedly. How are these issues going to help these individuals integrate and not fall to convenient sources of income or sources of pleasure, which we all know are slippery slopes? Overall, there's a sense of there's low security and safety of residents. There's no hiding the fact that addiction is an evil that you struggle with. How is that going to be managed? Are there going to be de-addiction rooms built in the center? Will there be enough staff well-equipped to deal with this? Homelessness further is associated closely with mental health issues. These then manifest into criminal activities for individuals, and it's only downhill from there. If this leads to increase in crime to personal property, increased drug use, and paraphernalia in and around the neighborhood, how are Brampton City and Peel Region Police equipped to handle this? Has the city conducted financial and social impact analysis for increased costs in these areas, specifically on increased police activity and urgent care requirements? We, as members of Credit Valley Residents Association, and with our petition link, actually it's in there if you click on the link, would like to see the analysis that the city has conducted in looking at the different sites with the Peel region before fixating on this one. Moreover, we have those 500 people who have signed this petition for the specific site designated for the construction of the center. I request the city to plan to address these concerns from the residents and uphold the democratic principles our city and country take pride in. And at the end, I would remind the council of what I could gather from the Credit Valley secondary plan, and it reads as follows, and I quote: "The predominant form of development that the community envisions is low-density residential with a built form that is compatible with the countryside character and a park system that is integrated with the natural areas. It is the intent of this chapter to promote the development of executive housing areas that have the requisite environmental features and amenities," end quote. I would like the council members and staff to be reminded of this vision when designing our neighborhood and let them not become empty words. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That concludes our delegations for that item. Our next item is, I believe, the staff report 7.3. A 4-story youth shelter. Staff report, application to amend the official plan. Sorry, Councillor, do you have any questions of the delegation? No. Councillor Vincenti, you'll move receipt of the delegations. Thank you very much. All in favor? We do have quorum, right? Okay. That carries. Our next item is the staff report, item 7.3, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, Arcadis, on behalf of the Region Municipality of Peel, 1358 Queen Street West, Ward 5, a 4-story youth shelter at the address of 1358 Queen Street West. We have, where's my screen? We have Councillor Vincenti. Councillor Vincenti, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the residents who have come here today to delegate and to speak about this proposal. But before I address some of the questions raised in delegation, I want to thank staff, both here in planning, but also at the region for having worked diligently to bring this plan forward. I also speak as a resident, I speak as a member of council, but also speak as Vice Chair of Human Services at the Region of Peel, in recognizing that we have a tremendous need, and not just in Brampton, but in all municipalities across the country, to make sure that we have places and spaces where we can gather people who have a serious and important need, that we as a country, as a nation, as a municipality, have an obligation to help them. There's been a lot of concern raised by delegates about this location. I would humbly propose to you that there isn't a single location anywhere within the mostly developed part of the city of Brampton where you could improperly place a facility like this. It could be next to my house. It could be in downtown Brampton. It could be near the estates of Credit Ridge. It could be out in the West End where we now have a temporary youth shelter in place that has been there since, I think, around 2015, 2016, and has been serving the needs of youth for many years now on a temporary basis. And the Region of Peel owns these lands, and they have an obligation to make use of the lands that they own if they can serve the good of people. This spot is as well located as any other spot in the city of Brampton, and it will help young people who need a hand up, who need help to right themselves. I have no issue moving the receipts of the report and moving the recommendation forward, Mr. Chair. I hope that my children never need this. And I hope that none of the children of the people who have been interested in this project ever need it also. This is a good place for young people to find some peace and to right their lives. And so I am, just want to very quickly ask a question through you, Mr. Chair, of staff, because when we talk about zoning, we often find ourselves here in council and in committee rezoning properties. And we talk about how we go from zoning A to zoning S, and there's often concerns about folks raise about the character. But really what we're talking about is, can different zoning types coexist? Can staff just talk a little bit about how, in reviewing this application, you found that this was in fact a good candidate of good planning, and that this use can coexist within this community?
Alan? Through Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Vicente, I'll leave it to our assigned planner here, Arjun Singh, who's reviewed the matters in detail, to speak to the merits of the application and the technical reviews that we've completed. Arjun.
Thank you, and through the chair, from our evaluation, we seem to receive all technical components have been satisfied.
With regards to transit serviceability, the site is going to be serviced by a future BRT that's planned for Queen Street West. Future improvements to the Zoom line is also anticipated in the near future, which kind of address that short-term issue with the transit serviceability. From a high level, staff is satisfied with the proposal as is. From a technical perspective, with regards to the woodlot, that was also a concern of residents at the public meeting. Through consultation with the CVC, we've determined that the site is no longer within the floodplain due to culvert upgrades on Queen Street West. As such, we have seen that it's appropriate for the redesignation of the lands in the OP and the zoning.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Chair, but I guess I just want to drill down on what really is the concern. This is not a single-family resident estate home. How is it that a use like this can happily and well coexist within a community as it will potentially find itself in soon?
If I could, through the chair, through to Councillor Vicente, I think to your excellent question, the application is as much about zoning as it is the integration of mix of uses. And there are lots of examples throughout the city where you have well-established residential areas adjacent to either, within the last few years, institutional types of uses for housing of all sorts of age cohorts. You'll recall in the last term, there was an application at Sandalwood and near Trinity Common, I forgot the cross street there, were of well-established residential, and there was a rezoning and official plan amendment for seniors long-term care. So I think to your point, when staff look at applications of this, it's not necessarily solely from zoning, it's more of how well can these types of uses be integrated to bring synergies to the community. In this particular case, through our evaluation, to build on the points that Arjun said, that there was a high level of integration between two types of zones that you typically may not always see across the city.
Hey, thank you very much. And I've stated what I believe. I think this is a blessing to the community, and I want to thank staff for finding a way to bring this come forward. And I have every confidence, we all have confidence in the capacity and the capability of the Region of Peel to operate a wonderful facility which will help people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vicente. Is there anybody else on the board? Seeing none. Therefore, the staff report is before us. Application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw Arcadius on behalf of the Regional Municipality of Peel, 1358 Queen Street West, Ward 5, to permit a 4-story youth shelter. I'll go through it. That the report from Arjun Singh, Development Planner, Development Services for the Planning and Development Committee of January 15, 2024, re-recommendation report application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw Arcadius on behalf of the Regional Municipality of Peel, 1358 Queen Street West, Ward 5 be received. That the application for the amendment of the official plan and zoning bylaws submitted by Arcadius on behalf of the Regional Municipality of Peel be approved on the basis that it represents good planning, including that it is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the Region of Peel official plan and the city's official plan. For the reasons set out in this recommendation report, that the amendment to the official plan, generally in accordance with the attachment 11 to this report, be adopted, and that the amendment to the zoning bylaw, generally in accordance with the attachment 10 to this report, be adopted, and that no further notice or public meeting be required for the attached official plan and zoning bylaw amendment pursuant to section 22(1)(b) and section 34(10.4) respectively of the Planning Act, RSO, as amended. All those in favor? That carries. Committee minutes. Is there any members? Are there any members? Are there any members on the online that oppose this application? Seeing none. There's no other business, no referred matters list. Correspondence have all been received, correct?
Through the chair, we would need to receive 11.2 to 11.6, please.
And I'm happy to move that. All in favor? That carries. councillor question period. Are there any members of council? Just hold on 1 second. Just hold on. 1 second. Are there any members of council that have any questions? Seeing none. This portion of the agenda is public question period. Is anybody from the public that would like to come up and ask any questions? Please come down, state your name for the record, and ask your question. Please come down. Welcome.
My name is Ramaljit Sandhu. I'm from Ward 4. I live in the neighborhood as well. My question is, which are the other 23 sites that were selected and rejected?
Do we have anybody from
And
staff
why?
that can?
Through
anybody from
Mr.
staff
Chairman,
that can talk to that?
City staff ourselves, we don't have detailed information in relation to what sites the Region of Peel would have reviewed and contemplated for this facility. It may be that regional staff that may still be in attendance at the meeting might be able to share through, but city staff do not have that information.
Okay. Is there anybody from the Region of Peel that would like to answer that question? Do you have any other questions at this time?
I don't. I just want to say I asked this particular question at my previous delegation as well,
Okay.
but never received the answer through email or through any telephone call.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else? Yes, please come.
Hi, my name is
Hold
Anmol
on 1
Arora.
second. Sorry, go ahead.
My name is Anmol Arora, and I'm in the neighborhood too. And my question is, we have more than 500 people who signed a petition requesting to reconsider. Was that even taken into consideration? And if there is something that we can do in order to change your minds, how can that be done? We are really concerned and we are raising our voices. There are people who cannot make it here, and that's why we had that petition. And the question that I have is, when 500 people are requesting you to do something, but still it's not been considered, I'm really concerned as to where is the gap and how can we bridge that gap?
For sure. So I can answer that question on behalf of, looking at the petition for myself. And I think the Credit Valley Residents Association know me as somebody that has fought extremely hard for what they have wanted in the past and anything that they've ever advocated. In looking at the petition, it's interesting to see people from Edmonton, St. Catharines, Oakville so interested in Brampton. Me working at the Region of Peel and being a Region of Peel councillor, and I fully, I support and I couldn't say it better myself in terms of what Councillor Vicente was talking about. If this location was right beside my house, I'd be very much supportive of this location. If you show me, and I know other youth shelters in the Region of Peel, you do not hear a peep from the neighbors around them. This is, you asked the question, this is my answer. As far as I'm concerned, and I understand that people, they have a big heart and very generous to people in Toronto and all out throughout Brampton. But the Region of Peel and the staff at the Region of Peel, some of the best in the business when determining the needs of youth in the city of Brampton. And if they say to me that this is the best location, then this is the best location, because these are people that don't need to be pushed away, and they're not somebody, some people when they come up here and they talk about youth shelters, they automatically think trouble or they think drugs. That's not the case. These are people that need support and need help, and we're here for them to do that. And I can guarantee you, once this is built, you won't hear a peep. You won't see any difference. I can guarantee you that. That's why I voted the way I did, and you won't be changing my mind on this, because this is a much needed service in the city of Brampton.
And I totally respect that.
Do you have any other questions?
I totally respect that, but then just like the other lady was saying, my next door neighbor was saying, there are other places too, right? There are those different, 23 other different locations. I'm pretty sure that the region of Peel would have places which are near, malls or where there are industries, not in a residential area where homeless people, these youth shelters, where the youth would come in and they would not see anything. They wouldn't see a mall that
Do
they
you have
could
any
go
other
and ask for.
questions?
Sorry?
Do you have any other questions?
Not at the moment, sir.
Okay. At this time, I can't force anybody to answer the question. I don't know in the staff report if they determined why this location was better than the other ones. I don't recall it in my mind. I can definitely ask Councillor Vincente as your counselor to look into that and provide that information, for sure. Yep, because he's a good counselor, and I'm sure it's in the report. I just don't recall.
From him, so I was like, I was
Thank you.
really looking forward to helping us,
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has any questions? Please come.
Hi, councillors. My name is Shaista. I'm one of the residents there. I just heard you saying about there won't be any issues in the youth shelter and things, but we know areas, there is a correction center down on McLaughlin, which is always an issue for the residents. But you are saying that if your city decides that's what's coming, you agree with that, but I don't understand, as the residents of Brampton, as the voters of Brampton who select our councillors, if we are not able to raise our concerns in front of you, where are we going? So that means staff has decided, but the residents says zero. We have no say. There's a huge area, and all the residents of that area are saying this is not good for our area. I don't know. I do understand the need is there, but need has to be moved. You have to see the residents also of the area who are raising their concern. There's a reason behind that. Like you're saying, once it's built, I guarantee there won't be an issue, but there is issue. Are you guaranteeing us you will move that shelter out of there? If that happens, tomorrow we have, because there's a park coming up, there is drug issues, there are disposable needles everywhere in the area. We know what happens. I'm a mom of 2 teenagers. I know what happens in schools, what happens in community. That happens. Will you be guaranteeing us here that if that happens, you are willing to move the shelter out of there? Because guarantee can't be only one side. It has to be what residents are raising. We are raising our concern, and as our councillors, you are entitled to listen to us, which you are, but we have a say that we are opposing. Now it's cold today, not everybody could come. We did rather a better way of coming over, speaking here, rather than going with the banners or something which is not educated people will do in this thing. But I don't understand.
What is your question, please?
My question is that we oppose this, like you are saying this, you agree because the city has planned. What is about the residents' say? So we have zero say when city rezones our area, and residents of that area who are affected because the city.
So to answer that question,
Yeah.
and for myself, because I
Yeah.
can only speak on behalf of myself. is
Yes.
The Credit Valley Residents of Association have been here, I think this is the 4th time from my recollection, for 3 other applications on Queen Street, and this is the 4th. And I supported all 3 of those requests when you came here in the past. This one I am not supporting your request because of the need and the actual how much of the need it is in the city of Brampton. So that's my answer to your question.
Okay, is this a Peel youth shelter, or this is just a Brampton youth shelter? It's coming from the whole Peel city, right?
It's the region of Peel.
So this is the only site that has been approved. So that means we have nothing to say, like it's approved, it's approved. We cannot object in any ways.
So Planning Committee has now approved the recommendation. This will now go to council for ratification.
It's unfortunate as residents, we don't have a say in front of our councillors. It's done, it's done.
I don't necessarily.
It's a shame for our community as such.
Any
for
other
the
questions?
residents. No, sir. That's
Thank you
done.
very much. Anybody else would like to come down? You cannot speak from up there. You can come down. I'm not worried. Please come down. Do you have any questions?
No, I just a little one.
You have to have a question. This is a question period. Just put
Okay,
it in the form of a question.
I'll try to. Is this a dictatorship or a democratic country that we are living? That's it, right?
Democratic. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for
that's
your
it.
question. Is there any other questions?
I'm opposing this thing. I mean, we voted you in for what? That's my question, right? You want to push the agenda through, I get it, because of political reasons, but we are the people who voted you for this. And you're backing us to the wall, and we don't want it there, right? Our property prices are going to go down. You're going to pay. That's it, man. I'm really...
Thank you for your question. Oh, can you state your name for the record, please? Sir?
Yeah.
You have to just state your name for the record.
My name is Himmat.
Thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none? One, yes, please,
Hello.
please. Oh, sorry, sorry. Sylvia Roberts was on, I'm sorry, Sylvia.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sylvia Roberts. Earlier in the meeting, I believe the chair referred to something as a God-given right. I think it was delegating on these items, and I was curious what made it a God-given right instead of a right granted by legislation.
Sylvia, I think it's that old Catholic mentality. My deepest apologies. I turned to Councillor Vicente right away and said, maybe it should have been city given right. My apologies.
Thank you, Councillor. That's all.
Thank you, Sylvia. Nope. No, he's come up already. He cannot come up again. Welcome.
Amaldeep Soin again.
Thank you, Amaldeep.
Okay, so decision, I do get it, like you being the judge and you being the jury. That's what it is. That's how we are feeling as residents here. We did not have much say, even though we thought, oh, we brought the best presentation or best reasoning for opposing this. And it is genuine reasoning that we brought to the council because we are disturbed, we are perturbed. That's why I'm saying to safeguard those 80 people, we are with the city to help them out. Why are you compromising on the residents of this neighborhood? I am sure out of those 25 locations, there must be few locations which the Peel region would have considered, and we are all human beings. If it is not impacting me, I'll take decision differently. I know city staff is bound by policies and procedures, which is very common in the government. And sometimes, you know, the best intentions, probably things are done with the best intentions, but come up with the worst results. And this is one of those things. And today you are saying I stand guaranteed.
Hold on one second. Let me go to your, kind of your first question. And I think it had related to
the judge and the jury.
Yeah. But the kind of those next steps. So any appeals to a council decision, maybe Alan or Steve?
Yep. Through
somebody highlight?
Mr. Chair, what I can share through is that, yes, as it relates to any application that's submitted to the city for development purposes, as always, we work through, staff does, the technical matters as it relates to the development application as we're required to by way of the legislation. There is ultimately a decision that comes forward by way of council after having considered staff's recommendations, and which has incorporated all of the residents' concerns and items, questions as well. Thereafter, after it is that planning committee forms a decision and council also ratifies that decision, there is an opportunity for appeals to be made. Any individual resident could put forward after the council decision on the matter of zoning bylaw amendment an appeal for the matter. So there is a particular process as it relates to filing appeals. It is subject to having been received within 20 days of notice being provided on the decision of council when it's issued by our clerks. And at that point in time, there can, within that 20-day appeal period, be an appeal that's submitted. So that appeal, if there was to be one, would be heard by the Ontario Lands Tribunal, which is a provincial body. It is their obligation to hear any appeals. That would be in relation to the appellant, which would be a party to the appeal. Also party to the appeal would be the city, if we so choose, as well as the applicant. And really it's through the information that's provided through to the Ontario Municipal Board, Ontario sort of litigation tribunal, that they ultimately will determine the final decision on the matter with any appeals.
No, thank you for that response, but you know, appeal, I know we probably have to go through lawyers and all that stuff. you must know that governments have deep pockets, we don't. We are already burdened with the tax that has been imposed on City of Brampton residents, especially us.
So I just wanted him to outline kind of that,
No, no, thank
that
you.
option.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
The question is, again, the recourse is probably the appeal. That's what he's suggesting. Is that true? And one comment can I make?
Question.
Not regarding to this.
Put it in the form of a question.
No, just a formal thing.
You have to put it in
Okay,
the form of a
all right.
question.
Question is, do we consider the landscaping or the character of the city at all when we are passing these bylaws or the amendments? Because we close a bowling alley and we approve a truck trailer stop or whatever it is called, truck parking. On Steels, like the major route, the other day somebody from Europe visited me, and I'm thinking to myself, which will be the best route to bring them to my house, because it's pathetic. I come from India, I come from a place called Chandigarh, which was designed by Le Corbusier, a French architect, God knows 50 years ago. That still is well planned, better planned than Brampton that I chose as a home. I was a proud Bramptonian 20 years ago, but now I'm wondering, what am I doing here? Seriously, it's embarrassing. And on top of that, now we have been blacklisted because these few residents are the pilot, because they have to go for you get the basement built with the certification from the city, why would you then need a license? You have to trust your residents also. Yes, there are stowaways, people like who have the investment properties who are not keeping to the standard, but we are. So that's why we are concerned.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Vicente.
MRD, I'm going to ask your question to staff, but in a different way. Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. If someone had come with an application to put truck parking on this parcel, speaking in general terms, how might staff's report have looked like?
Yeah, through the chair, speaking in generalities, it would be highly unlikely that staff would recommend a positive or favorable report for committee and council's consideration because of the lack of integration, which I previously referred to in my earlier response.
So in other words, if someone were to come forward with an application that is completely incompatible, we wouldn't be looking at a positive staff report. We would have a report recommending against the proposal. Through your chair.
Through the chair, exactly right.
Right. So in this situation, then, we have a proposed use that through staff's technical know-how and understanding of all of the legislation, the regs, provincial direction, et cetera, and this is a compatible use in this community.
Through the chair, it's staff's opinion and recommendation that this proposal is very much compatible with the existing community and future developments around it.
And I know, through you, Chair, I know that other councillors in the past have waxed on about this at great detail. And while it is within the rights of any resident to now move ahead and appeal this at the Ontario Land Tribunal, what do we know historically of such requests for appeal when there is a positive staff report?
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Vicente, should an appeal be made by a residents group or any residents, I would suspect that the Ontario Land Tribunal would look at this case and try to resolve it through mediation first, just hearing out the appellant. And furthermore, I would suspect because staff have made such a positive report for committee and council's consideration that aligns to existing policies and procedures, many of them at the provincial level, it would probably be my estimation that the Ontario Land Tribunal would favor with staff's recommendation in this particular case.
No more questions.
Thank you. That's the end of question period. Thank you very much for your questions. Next item is adjournment. It's been moved by Councillor Tour. All in favor? That carries. Our next regular meeting is Monday, January 29th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the night.